Welcome back, my friend.
Hey Carlos, how are you?
Very good, and you?
Good, thank you. It's Friday, start of
It's
another weekend,
Friday.
Yeah, big plans this weekend. It's Mother's Day here in the United States this weekend. I don't know if Mother's Day is kind of a universally celebrated date, but certainly here in the United States, it's this weekend. So I hope that you've got something lined up, for all the mothers in your life.
Yeah, so we have. So for my wife, we did something last night. Then we're gonna Sunday. We have a couple of things. We're working for an organization that we're gonna actually have Mexican mariachis
Mm,
for the mothers, and like food. And then we're gonna be going out. And definitely, she already sent. She did not let me pick. She said, "Here's what I want for my gift." So
that
I'm
makes
like,
it easy.
okay, that make exactly that makes it a lot easier. I don't have to be, will she want this or she wants that? No, I'm like ready.
There you
How
go.
about you?
Yeah, we in my relationship with my wife, I'm the one who's usually better at choosing gifts. Like if she tells me something, yes, then certainly I'll get it. But I'm the one who's so I've got a little, surprise or two up my sleeves. But then of course I always have to ask the kids, like, do you need help getting something? My girls are older, they're both in college, so they're good at figuring things out. It's my son who's in high school that I kind of have to, he'll send me something from Amazon and I go and order it for her. So but yeah, we've got all that covered, and it should be nice weather here in the Boston area this weekend. So we'll just enjoy a nice spring weekend and celebrate all the mothers.
That's really cool. It's not chilly like in Boston, but yesterday was low 80s, so probably may get a little bit hotter this um but that's a part of being Florida.
Yeah, I
We
was going to say
enjoy.
that's why you're wearing your long sleeves, right? Clearly, you're suffering and you're cold. So I wish you warmth and hopefully it recovers.
So we have been a little bit dealing with different things, working on different projects. But I think that a theme that I keep seeing, and when I talk to other industry expert, is the idea of truly understanding the customer. The
Hmm.
customer, the way that we used to do things may have changed a little bit. But I think that if we don't understand the customer, we cannot provide them the services or the products. And it's a topic that I'm passionate about because I work in different areas and I see it across everything. When I go to Costco, just having the person saying, "Hi, can I help you with something?" Uh, it makes that experience, even though I'm just going to a big warehouse, so they have taken the time to understand what made the customer want. And I'm like, that's an interesting topic. So I said I'm gonna talk with Mike about it. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think if you look at the last couple of years and what we've all been through, and it is kind of what we've all been through, right? Which I think is, as much negative in the last couple of years, right? It was kind of a shared global experience, unfortunately, with COVID. But if you went out shopping during those days and lined up at a grocery store where everybody was 6 feet apart, masked, heads down, then eventually you're let in, shop, 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 get out of there as quickly as you can, get home, all that. What you're describing now is that return to normalcy and kind of general, um, kind of friendliness, customer service, customer awareness type of things that everybody pulled back for a couple of years. And now something that you would have taken for granted, like somebody saying hi to you, now you appreciate, right? Because it's a very simple gesture. And I think that's something that throughout all of our interactions in the business to business world, right? So if I'm an MSP and I'm serving my SMB customers, I think it is important to remind staff just, hey, don't forget the courtesies, or even like you and I do, we come on to this, we start a conversation, but we don't dive right in. It's like, hey, it's Friday, it's another weekend. What's happening? Let's talk about, things that are, going on. We're human beings. The people watching and listening are human beings. We interact with other human beings. People have feelings. People want to create relationships. They want to get to know each other. And so it's not kind of skipping past all that stuff and getting right into the business, but knowing the people who are in your customers, in your organization, your colleagues as well, and taking the time to make those human connections. Because once you connect with people, I think a lot of people can identify, like if you've worked with a bunch of people and done a bunch of Zooms and those things, and now all of a sudden you meet them in person, like you and I finally met in person a couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago here in Boston, right? Like all of a sudden it's like, okay, now it's a little different, right? The interactions online are a little bit more personal, more close, like you feel more connected to people after seeing them in person. And so I think that's an important thing to realize as everybody's getting back into conferences and events and seeing people face to face and visiting each other's offices, not to forget that stuff. Now, you may say, like, I don't need to remind my staff, but I think it helps just to point out the importance of it and just kind of make sure that they recognize it.
It's interesting that sometimes we think that we don't need that reminder. And it's really interesting how we then, when we actually finally see that again, what we used to take for granted, like that water cooler conversation.
Hmm.
Like we said, we were all together in Boston, and we have worked for a while. And when we come together, it was interesting, the dynamic. And like you said, going again now to different conferences and seeing people getting together, the interaction to how do you bring the conversation to them just for the idea of conversation. Hey, let me
Hmm.
interact with another human being without trying to sell them something. So then I can know, oh, this is a human being. It's not just a checkbook.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think
that's
that's an
very important
important.
for them.
Yeah, and what's important to them, right? And this is where um, there's a methodology. The marketing automation company HubSpot has developed this inbound marketing methodology, and then of course they built out inbound sales to go along with it. And there's a great page on their website that explains it. You don't have to use their software to benefit from this and kind of learning about it. In fact, they have, as you see at the top, there is an inbound marketing course that you can take advantage of that's free. And I do recommend it to people. But the inbound marketing methodology very much thinks about um, helping, not selling. If you're helping people solve the problems that exist in their business, in their lives, that builds loyalty, trust, and connection so that when those people do need to buy something that you might happen to offer, they're going to come back to the people who helped them. And so it's earning that opportunity to kind of work with people by giving with the expectation of receiving nothing in return. And that's just a good value, right? Like to teach to your children and to kind of practice yourself or whoever you influence in life, right? Like be generous, give to others, help other people. We're all in a connected society here. But in the B2B world, right? Like what problems can I help you with? It might be making a recommendation or someone reached out to me last week that I don't know, but he's local. He's looking for a new role. He wanted a couple minutes just to kind of, pick my brain. Or like, sure, I've been in that boat myself, looking for advice from others, looking for connections. Be generous, help people. Many people believe in karma, right? And kind of, just putting good energy into the world. This is very much in that vein. So inbound methodology, though, takes it further and kind of gets deeper into it. But the fundamental premise is helping, not selling.
It's like I'm part of a group that have probably 4 or 5 thousand business owners, and it's very interesting. I know the owner of the group, and we have collaborated in a couple of things, and we both have very similar backgrounds, but he shares a lot, and he specifically says, I don't do any of the implementation.
Hmm.
So if it's something for a website, for a company, or anything like that, so there are other people that actually do implementation that they're part of the group. And it's very interesting because you said people go to the group, and I don't know if he probably is watching. Is his Dave Gambro? So if you're there, leave a comment. It's interesting because people go to the group and post a question, and because they know that he may have an answer or he will refer someone, then the next piece of the conversation that somebody posts in the comment is, do you have an affiliate link so I can buy it through your link? And at the beginning, I was not understanding that dynamic. I'm like, Why, if you can go directly to whatever vendor is, let's say Gmail, if you can go to Gmail and you can buy your own G Suite license, or if you can buy ClickFunnels or whatever software product is in the planet, they were asking him. And it was interesting because one time I sat down with him on a mastermind and he described exactly what we're talking about. If you start helping and sharing as to help the person without any interest,
Hmm.
people gonna come back. And when you have something, they say, can I get it from you? Because then I build the trust. And that was like
Yeah.
the trust factor is what made the difference. And now more than ever, because after everything, like, I don't know you, but like a lot of people told me, like, oh, we're gonna die. We need to sell everything. I'm like, we're not gonna die. But like now people are still rebuilding the trust. So that vendor that treats someone else just like a checkbook is not creating any trust.
And I think that really is the important connection. Like even as I sit here today, I I've got a guy in my backyard with a big piece of equipment doing a landscaping project. He was referred to me by my trainer at the gym, who I've working with, for 5, 6 years now, I think. The guy who rebuilt my deck last year was referred by my trainer. I'm finally getting new headshots taken next week. I'm going to a photographer who is referred by my trainer. Right? He's a great connector. He knows a lot of people in a
Yeah.
lot of different businesses locally, and so he acts as a great resource to many. And so what is it? People build loyalty and trust, right? Like he's only referred people before to me that have delivered successfully, right? I haven't, had any misses with that. I work with people, we do fair deals. They may not be the cheapest in the market, but I also know that they're accountable to my trainer and to many others because of their reputation, because they're building loyalty and trust and connection with people. So I think for MSPs who are out in their markets around the country or around the world, it's very much the same thing. You've built your reputation. People trust you as the expert in your domain. They come to you for advice. If you talk to them about how to, and this is kind of tying back into inbound, inbound is very much, they have kind of this flywheel. I'll pull up the graphic if you want to reshare that. But
Yeah.
they talked about, this kind of cycle: attract, engage, and delight. And there is an explanation just above it. So attract, drawing people in with the right valuable content and conversations, establish you as a trusted advisor with whom they want to engage. So it doesn't say email people to death, cold call them until they give in. It says attract them. So how do you attract them? Um, you write blog articles, you do LinkedIn posts, you post on Twitter or whatever, wherever your customers and prospective customers go for information. And what do you talk about? It's really simple. I've got kind of like a little formula I've developed for how I used to blog when I was doing blogging every week on this. Um, you think about the conversations you had with customers and prospects during the course of the week. What problems did they describe? What advice or solutions did you offer to them? Not product specific, not services, those kind of things. How do you share that with them, and kind of what advice? And then tell that as a story. Don't say Carlos told me about all these problems that he has and here's what I told him to do, right? Like you raise it up a level and you say, in our work that we do with customers, we find many of them struggle with managing the costs of IT services. When they use public clouds, it's really hard to budget. Understanding, things like egress costs and all of that on Microsoft Azure, for example, is really hard. So what we tell them is, there are three kind of fundamental rules to it: 1, 2, and 3, and you kind of lay those out. If this information was helpful to you, click like, subscribe, all the kind of the typical social things, right? And then you didn't say like, call me and we'll write a proposal, right? Like that's an understood, but I just try to create content that attracts people. And then over time, people say, like, wow, really helpful information. In theory, that's stuff that I could have hired them for and had them tell us and paid them, but they gave it for free. And then obviously you're setting up for higher value services down the road, right? Like that's the engage piece. So after I attract, then I'm going to engage. And that's when people do it on their terms when the time is right for them. So much of sales is trying to interrupt people and stop them and try to create a moment. It's going to happen when it happens. You attract them, they're consuming your content, reading your blog, following you on LinkedIn, whatever it happens to be. When they need you, they will engage you. And then that's when you can do the work and deliver the solution and then obviously delighting them is making sure that they're very satisfied with the experience.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I wrote a blog article that is still relevant. Um, Probably I would say 5 or 6 years ago, and there's one of the online platforms that only installs the client to replicate on the C drive. There's
Mm.
no way to put it on a D drive. So, some of these computers now have a small SSD to boot to
Yeah.
make it faster and a larger
Right.
drive.
Yeah.
So, if you work with videos or different things like that and you cache them, you fill up your small SSD. So, I don't know what they haven't fixed that, but the article keep getting hit constantly. And this past week, I actually got someone asking for help specifically. They went through the process of reaching out, not only putting a comment, but actually reaching out to say, hey, I try your article. I'm running here. I'm having a problem. Can you help me? And it was like a literally a 5 minute conversation. They were putting a wrong slash, the way that they type it and stuff like that. But it's interesting because, like you said, we attract them by giving them people. They're gonna look for someone that will help them solve a problem before they buy from them. Can these
Right.
people be trusted to help me solve a problem? And that will be, like you said, a blog post article, some type of webinar, some type of video, some type of something. That's where the content marketing type idea come in. That sometimes on the technology world, I see that probably the technologists don't understand so much, or sometimes the technology companies, and they think, oh, we need a huge marketing expert to do all this, when the idea is, how do I have a conversation? Like, how do I treat them as a person? They
Right.
have a need. And that's really good what you said. You attract them, then you engage them. The delight phase, I'm looking forward to see what you say. What is that delight phase in your mind?
Yeah, and that's as HubSpot writes it on the page. I'll just read from it. It says, providing help and support to empower your customers to find success with their purchase. So if you're delivering MSP services, right? You're delivering platform applications, security management, the typical kind of MSP bundle. Finding success with their purchase could be things like if they're using the Microsoft 365 productivity suite. That's the primary set of end user tools that people are using to create and manage content. It could be doing things like we're going to put some value added kind of nurture content out there to help people get the most in kind of a tips and tricks series. You could do that as a series of emails that you send out to kind of help the end users, or you could offer to do an on-site tips and tricks or a Zoom-based tips and tricks session uh, that's going to be maybe for 6 weeks after you go live or when new versions come out or new tools and those kind of things. Should you charge the customer for that? Maybe you build that into your service level, right? So it's kind of there is some sort of end user training that's built in. Helping them get the most out of the tools or the investment they've already made in your software, in your services, obviously behooves you because it becomes stickier. They're more loyal, more trustworthy. We all know as we sit in front of computers all day, and this is how you, especially on the technology side, have made yourself quite a career. Is like there's a lot of complexity that people deal with. They want to interact with people who are going to help eliminate that complexity, eliminate the friction, help them get the most out of it. So those are really key pieces. It's not just kind of like, okay, we delivered it. Um, it's thinking, how do we actually pull those pieces together in such a way that people are going to feel great about it? And then what happens when they are delighted? They recommend you to others, right? So the best, I know a lot of MSPs work through word of mouth as far as referrals. Maybe they even put a referral bonus program out there for customers, like refer us and we sign them on, you get something. Um, Monetary or a care package or a discount or a free whatever. But those kind of things, you obviously want to incentivize that. But I think that people, even when they have no incentive, will recommend you if they believe in you, if they trust you, if you've delivered value to them. and they'll be proud to recommend you. And that's, like we talk about, whether it's my trainer recommending these people or people recommending him or others, right? Like you've built a community of trust around you, and that is worth a lot, right? Like that's worth more than any marketing budget.
And that's really important in this day and age, that so many people can just go out into any search engine and they can find whatever you're looking for. How to blah, do this. And it's interesting because the new generation, um, they're very good at that, but they're also very good at looking for someone that can shrink the window that they need to learn something. And that's why, like, when you learn to know your customer, you actually get a customer for life, because then you start serving what they need. Like, there's one of the organizations that I visit that they decided probably about 6 months ago, as people were starting to come back again during the weekends and stuff like that, they were gonna put like some shades in front of their building,
Hmm.
so people can just congregate in there. No problem. Come. And they were giving free coffee. And the impact that it had, because their customers in that case wanted to have an open space that still a little bit of COVID was around or something like that they can, with people that they know, they can start mingle again. They can start connecting again a little bit. And it's interesting because sometimes on Sundays, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and people are still talking and
Yeah.
in there. So when you learn to know your customer, you can attract them, you can delight them. And I think that it goes to the ball that you have in the middle in there. That is, I think, what every business owner is looking for. That is the growth phase.
Yeah, and this diagram builds out that the graphic that we saw before, and kind of adds this, what is the flywheel, and talks about kind of their concept. I think the other helpful piece it puts around the side too is how to think about the people. So we're attracting strangers, we're engaging prospects, we're converting them into customers, delighting them into the point where they become promoters of the business. And this is really the key. Growth is in the middle. Trust could be in the middle here too. As Kevin is pointing out in the comments, right? A community of trust is worth more than any marketing budget, which is so true. And I know Kevin is a HubSpot partner as well and does this kind of work in his agency. It's really the key is it's not just growth for you, it's growth for your customers as well. And so when you help them realize the value of their investments, that's when we all grow. The example that you just gave of kind of putting up the, serving the coffee and putting up the blinds there. So people, it reminds me of a story that when I was at Microsoft, one of the speakers we had come in for one of our offsites was the former CMO or VP of marketing, maybe, I don't know if he was the actual CMO at Harley Davidson. And he talked about how, many years ago they struggled, and then they started kind of reinventing the dealership experience and doing like what you're talking about. So like most Harley dealers around the United States, if you go over the weekend, they have the tent set up in the parking lot. They have a barbecue out there and they're making hot dogs and burgers or whatever. There's the community feel. And what they found by starting to host these events is people would start to go, hey, like I really like those fenders that you have on your bike. I'm going to add them to mine. And then, Harley's turned into this incredibly personalized vehicle versus kind of being straight off the factory line. And of course, what happens? The revenue per bike, goes up exponentially, right? So just by creating some community, some engagement, having those opportunities to come together, gave them that opportunity to grow the business. So it's the simple things. People might look at it at first, and they did at Harley, and kind of the story that he told. Uh, like, hey, what's the ROI of this, right? Like, why would we want to spend money on these kind of things? And now that's kind of a staple of the brand, right? And what they do through their third party dealers. So uh, I think for MSPs who look at this, you think like, what can we do? Like MSPs in a local market connect businesses of all types, all industries. Some may specialize, right? We do law practices, we do dentists and other medical offices, we do these kind of things. But you are a great connector. Can you do some sort of a community business mixer? Many are involved in their local chamber of commerce or economic development councils and those kind of things. How can you be the expert to the community so that when people want those kind of IT services, they wouldn't think of going anywhere else because you've been so generous in helping to educate the community about what it is you do, that people wouldn't even think to go anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that that's part of the delighting the customer. In order for you to grow, you need to share what you do. And when you learn what your customer wants, then you can deliver it to them. And your customer is as simple as understanding, do they live in their computer? Do they live in their mobile device? And then what do they need? It's funny because like my wife constantly is taking videos and photos of stuff.
Hmm.
And she tells me that her audience love to see airplanes. And I'm like, wait, just an airplane going over it. So I don't know what the deal is, but I have seen um, the the posts that she does on her Instagram,
Hmm.
and she gets a ton of views. And initially, those views were nothing. That started turning into money
Hmm.
because now Instagram enable her to get paid for the reels. So again, I wanted to see how she started growing it. Like literally, she was originally just posting without no intention of anything, and then people start commenting on the little things. Oh, I like those planes, um, or they actually stop to watch the whole video, and it may be a minute or something like that, and it's just literally just the plane moving or something like that. But it became that just posting those videos, she probably makes $300, and she just sit down when she's on the bed. She posts them at specific times because what's what her audience want. Why do I bring that? Because now you also need to understand where your customer is. Like you mentioned, the Harley Davidson dealership, um, they actually decided to do something about it. And let me see here. This is the one that you're
Yeah, so
telling
that's
me.
Ken Schmidt. He's the speaker that I just referred to. So he was director of communications or something, I think was his title, not CMO or VP of marketing. But yeah, he's the guy who spoke. And so he tells that story as one of his talks about, how to kind of, obviously sharing the example and thinking, how do I apply this, is one of the many things that he talked about.
But like we're talking about for our practices, for our businesses, even if we work for a company, we need to look at it as a we own that little piece where we're responsible. We need to interact with others so we can delight them, so we can engage them. So at the end of the day, they can say, oh, that solution that you have is great and I trust you. I want to know more about it.
So I just shared another tab for you. I'm sharing, this is, my side thing is as I've talked about before, I do drone photography. Now, you talked about your wife example, and kind of the things. I think part of it is not getting tied up in the views and those kind of things and the clicks. I mean, TikTok
Right?
does a metric here around the number of kind of plays and those things. So you look at all my videos, a couple hundred kind of things. I have one that I have 104,000 views on it.
Wow.
Previously, it was like, the most I would get close to was kind of 500, right? Nothing really. And then all of a sudden, so what was it that with this one? It
This
just happened to
rainy
be at the
day
beginning of
is
baseball season where we
temporary. The
recorded the
contrast
Card
is
Grounds
why
Group
we
bringing
come.
out
The
the new
sun
rain tarp, which is sponsored by LL Bean, so they've got the
this
logo on it.
rainy
And
day
it was just
is
good timing, and I put a
temporary. The
good piece of
contrast
music
is
to it,
why we
and it
come. The
just took
sun
off, right? So I think people get hung up on the views or the clicks and somehow attribute that to ROI. And I think what we need to do is really play the long game, right? Is not to worry about the statistics. You talked about your posts from many years ago with the C drive, D drive, like, and then all of a sudden something comes up. Don't worry about the clicks and the views. Create good content, share it in the places where your customers go, right? And prospects go, and where people, it's also all feeding into the search engines. Don't forget that, the world's largest search engine is not Google, it's actually YouTube, right? Think about how much people go to YouTube and look for this and that. So creating video content, good descriptions, good titles, those kind of things help, as well as web pages, LinkedIn posts, those kind of things. Don't get hung up on the metrics. Just trust that, people are going to find you as long as you're talking about stuff that's relevant to your audience. When people are searching for solutions to those problems, they're going to find you. And that's how you create that inbound marketing. Then it's about kind of capturing that interest, right, and starting to understand the customers, start to engage with them and give them more things that they would find interesting, and then building those relationships of trust from there.
Trust is the key, and we had here like no trust, no go. Like know your audience, engage, entertain, and educate. It's very interesting. That is key. If you educate, one time I heard one of my mentors mention edutain. Like people like to learn, but they also like to be entertained. That's what they spend hours just watching stuff. So if you can do like literally, there's one guy that I just look for his post because they're funny, but he give you a clip of something in under 30 seconds. And I'm like, okay, I know a lot, but I'm like, I want to learn to be able to do that. To just in literally 30 seconds, boom, 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 you get something. Um, so
Yeah, and like one example on that as we get ready to close here is I'm looking for the guy. I don't even know his name. You probably know who this guy is. He's a Microsoft guy, I'm pretty sure, works still for Microsoft, and he does Azure videos. Oh, I found him. Here he is.
oh,
John
Jack Saville.
Seville. Yeah,
Yep.
John Seville. The guy
Yes.
is, he works in front of a whiteboard. He's, he's not what like if you have a picture in your mind of typical Microsoft speakers when they're presenting, uh, it's not him. He's bald. He's completely jacked. I mean, I don't know how much time he spends in the
He's an
gym.
he,
He's got
he's an
tattoos.
Iron
He's
Man.
got crazy t-shirts.
He's an Iron Man. He actually
Yeah.
competing Iron Man.
So but he's in front of the whiteboard and he draws and teaches. So he's much more entertaining than somebody sitting there off screen doing a boring PowerPoint, right? He's much more interactive and kind of the way that he delivers that. So, you know, I think the point for MSPs or really for anybody, depending on the business, is like, how can you be that person in your industry? Like, especially if you have a personality, you like, to entertain people, you want to educate them. How do you leverage that in a way? And you may think like, oh, I'm creating content. Is anybody even going to care? We live in a world of billions of people, right? Somebody will care. People will find you. Give it time to create your community. Like I'm gonna keep on. I mean, I only have the TikTok channel because my kids told me I should. I don't really expect to find drone photography clients there, but it's entertaining to kind of put stuff out there. I may go for another couple of years and not have a post that gets 100,000 views, and that's fine. Like I didn't monetize that in any way. Like it doesn't pay my bills. To me, it's more interesting just kind of what catches fire and grows. And so you never know what that's going to be for you unless you go create some content and publish.
And that's what's gonna help you learn to know your customer, deliver great service to them because they know what they want. They come to you, and you can delight them. So, my friends, has been awesome to see you again, Mike. See you next week.
We'll see you next week. Thanks, man.
Take care.